Hello student, now we are going to discuss about geography paper first, that is GG201 physical geography paper first, lithosphere part second, semester second. During this second semester we have to study the paper first, that is physical geography lithosphere part second. In this paper there are 4 units. First unit is about weathering. This unit includes definition of weathering, types of weathering with examples, and the types of weathering are mechanical weathering, chemical weathering, and biological weathering. Then weathering and soil formation. Now we have to study about the weathering. Weathering is one of the process of denudation. Denudation is the wearing away of rocks so that underlying rocks are laid bare. Weathering म्हणजे विखंडन, खडकांचे विखंडन. Then the definition of weathering is the disintegration of the earth crust by exposure to the atmosphere is often called weathering. Then another definition for the weathering is weathering may be defined as mechanical fracturing or chemical decomposition of rocks in situ by natural agents at the surface of the earth. Weathering does not involve the removal of material, so it is a static process. Weathering is the mechanical fracturing or chemical decomposition of rocks in situ. त्याच ठिकाणी घडणारी ही प्रक्रिया आहे ती मेकॅनिकल फ्रॅक्चरिंग किंवा केमिकल डिकम्पोजिशन द्वारे. Weathering refers to the decay and disintegration of the rocks of the earth crust by exposure to the atmosphere. Weathering does not involve the removal of material, so it is static process. Weathering ही एक स्थिर प्रक्रिया आहे, कारण त्या ठिकाणी म्हटलेलं आहे की weathering does not involve the removal of material. Weathering of rocks depend on several factors. Weathering is directly or indirectly related to the condition and elements of weathering, that is atmospheric elements, म्हणजे climatic elements such as temperature, rainfall, frost, and so on. The rate of weathering is dependent on characteristics of rocks like hardness, softness, texture, and joints. Vegetal cover and burrowing animals also affect the degree and nature of weathering. वनस्पतीचं आच्छादन आणि काही बरोइंग ॲनिमल्स जे आहेत, बिळात राहणारे प्राणी, यांचा सुद्धा या ठिकाणी वेदरिंग प्रक्रियेवर फरक पडत असतो. देन टाइप्स ऑफ weathering with the examples. There are 3 types of weathering through which all rocks are subjected to disintegrate. And generally, these three types of weathering are physical or mechanical weathering, chemical weathering, and biological weathering. Physical or mechanical weathering. First one is physical or mechanical weathering. That is the weathering that disintegrates rocks without changing their chemical composition is known as mechanical weathering. The wind also plays an important role to disintegrate rocks. Mechanical weathering is carried out by changes in temperature, freezing action of water. Freezing action of water means frost, and rain. The first one factor which affects the degree of weathering is temperature. In a arid means a desert. In a arid and semi-arid areas, the diurnal range of temperature is very high. That is, days are very hot and nights are very cold. Due to intense heat, the surface rocks expand during the day while they contract during the night. This successive expansion and contraction of the rocks causes joints or cracks to develop. These gradually become wide and ultimately break into smaller blocks, fragments, or grains. Rocks are bad conductor of heat. Therefore, outer layers of rocks that are exposed to the sun expand more than lower layers. Due to alternate expansion and contraction, the outer layers become loose and peel off from the main mass of the rock in the form of thin concentric cells. This type of weathering is known as exfoliation, म्हणजेच अपपर्णन. As we know, rocks are bad conductor of heat, so that outer layers of rocks are exposed to the sun, that are exposed to the sun expand more than lower layers. The rate of mechanical weathering is always a maximum in tropical and subtropical deserts. या ठिकाणी फिजिकल किंवा मेकॅनिकल वेदरिंगचा रेट हा केव्हाही जास्त असतो. Then another agent for the mechanical weathering is frost, that is the freezing action of water. Freezing action of water. In a cold climate, disintegration of rocks takes place by rainwater. The rain water percolates in the joints and it gets frozen by the low night temperatures. When water freezes, its volume increases by about 10%, and consequently it requires more space. This causes gradual widening of the joints and results in the breaking up of the rocks. This type of weathering is very common in high mountainous regions. because in high mountainous regions the temperatures are low. If this action takes place on sloping land, large blocks of rocks are dislodged from their original place, and rock fragments accumulate at the foot of mountains or on their slopes. They are known as scree or talus. Another agent of mechanical weathering is rain. Rainfall plays an important role in mechanical weathering. The mechanical weathering is considerable where the areas experience torrential rainfall. ज्या भागामध्ये मुसळधार पाऊस पडतो त्या भागात त्या प्रदेशात अशा प्रकारच्या वेदरिंगचा रेट हा जास्त असतो. रेन वॉटर फॉल्स on the surface of the rock with speed attained through gravity. The heavy raindrops loosen rock particles, and these loosened rock particles are carried away by rainwash. The rainwater is absorbed by minerals. This addition of water plays an important role in the creation of swelling and stress within the rocks. This results disintegration of rocks. In this way, rain plays an important role to disintegrate the rocks and is a type of mechanical weathering. Another agent of mechanical weathering is wind. In arid and semi-arid regions, wind plays an active role to disintegrate rocks. In a dry climatic region, wind aids make a crack of the rocks to develop. In arid and semi-arid regions, there is a very less vegetative cover. So the speed of wind is considerable, and hence the mechanism of wind is important and which play an important role to disintegrate rocks through wind-laden sand. Wind aids make crack of the rocks to develop. The cracking in the rocks results removing the concentric layer of the rocks. The process of disintegration of rock in mechanical weathering are described as block disintegration, granular disintegration, exfoliation, shattering, and so on. The first one is a block disintegration. If the rocks are disintegrated along joints and broken into big blocks, this process is called block disintegration. Then granular disintegration. If the rocks are coarse grained, they broken down into individual grains. They are disintegrated into smaller particles. This process is called granular disintegration. It occurs in hot desert regions. Then the exfoliation, apaparnan. Ex means pre-existing and folio means seed. In this process of weathering, the outer layers of the rocks are peeled up into thin concentric flakes, means pieces, from the main mass of the rocks. This type of weathering is known as onion weathering. Then shattering. This type of weathering process takes place in hot desert areas. It is the result of a disintegration of rock into different size and shape due to stress. This process is called shattering. The rocks are shattered due to sudden light showers in the hot deserts. In this way, there are different agents which play an important role to carry out the mechanical weathering, and these are rain, frost, that is the freezing action of water, temperature, and wind. In this way, weathering takes place in different areas. The next part will be continued during the next period. Thank you.